The Jews being blind isn't very effective for raising money. It's good for making the Christian feel better. Well, the reason that Jews don't accept Jesus is not because they have a point. It's really because they're blind. But the point that it's because they haven't been educated. That's the message that pulls the money out of the wallets. This is called How Can Jewish People Not Believe Jesus is the Messiah? Rabbi Jason Sobel. So we're going to see how it is. Why can't Jewish people believe Jesus is the Messiah?
One of the questions that we often receive is, how can Jewish people not believe that Yeshua is the Messiah, given that he fulfilled so many of the messianic prophecies contained in the Hebrew Scriptures?
One reason Jews reject Jesus as the Messiah is because the messianic prophecies that he fulfills are those prophecies that only Christian claims are messianic prophecies. He didn't fulfill the other ones. Let me give you an example. Isaiah 7:14 is not, according to Judaism, a messianic prophecy. It is a prophecy that is tied to the time of Isaiah, 700 years before Jesus, and it has to do with a sign on behalf of King Ahaz that the two kingdoms that are about to attack him are not going to be successful. And so the prophecy that's given there, the sign that's given there, is a sign restricted in time to King Ahaz.
The first thing we have to understand is the messianic prophecies we believe are fulfilled in the Messiah. The Jewish people have historically also believed that they're pointing to the Messiah, except they don't believe that it is fulfilled in the person of Yeshua, that is fulfilled in the person of Jesus. And part of the reason why is that they've never heard the Messiah explained to them in a way that shows his Jewishness, that connects the old and the new in a way that they can understand.
And you have to know that these groups that are always seeking out Jews for conversion to Christianity have two audiences. The first audience is the potential Jewish convert that they're after. But the second audience is really, in some ways, the more important audience, in that without that audience, they couldn't do the things they do. That audience is their Christian supporters who don't really know very much about Judaism, beyond what they're being told by these messianics. Sort of like one of the things where they focus on, and that really gets the people to pull their wallets out and start sending money to them, is the idea that the reason that Jews aren't coming around is because they just don't know, they're ignorant. The Jews being blind isn't very effective for raising money. It's good for making the Christian feel better. Well, the reason that Jews don't accept Jesus is not because they have a point. It's really because they're blind. But the point that it's because they haven't been educated, that's the message that pulls the money out of the wallets, because that is the thing that you can actually address. You can't help people who've been blinded by Satan, because Satan is more powerful than you are. So you can't help those people, not really. But you can help people who are ignorant and haven't been educated.
The truth is, most believers know the New Testament. They don't know the Hebrew Scriptures in the depth of connections that really point in a very powerful and persuasive way to how Yeshua is the Messiah.
I've known a lot of Christians who are very ignorant of the Hebrew Scriptures. And if they knew any Hebrew Scriptures, the ones they knew were Isaiah 53, Psalm 22, Psalm 2. But beyond that, like, they might know Isaiah 53, but they don't know, Isaiah 4. They don't know Isaiah 5. They don't know anything that isn't Christological. They don't know that part of the Hebrew Scriptures. They only know the parts they've been told foretell Jesus. And that is a problem, because how do you know those are about Jesus? You don't have the greater context. But it's interesting he points this out. I haven't really heard too many people that I've looked at actually admit to something like this, which is that even Christians are unfamiliar with the Hebrew Scripture. So it's interesting he's pointing that out. And so I guess this book is supposed to remedy that, probably though through the means of pointing to the Hebrew Scriptures and telling them what it means, and then you can go share it with Jews. for the Jews, I'd say, we have books like that too. You can where you can only focus on a certain number of passages. These are put out by counter missionaries, who they put out videos and text and things like that then address all the areas that Christians constantly are bringing to Jews. But that isn't learning Torah. That isn't learning Tanakh. That's parroting someone else's arguments. So I would just suggest to everyone that instead of getting that book, or that you just take out your Tanakh, take out the Hebrew scriptures you have, and just start studying that, and just read it over and over again, and you'll be so amazed. And if you're a Christian and you really want to understand why Jews spend so much time studying God's law, read Psalm 119. Read it over and over and over again. And I think you'll start to understand that there is a reason that we spend so much time studying the Torah, the legal aspects and the Talmud and things like that. I think you'll discover that that this is actually a biblical mindset that God wants us to have. God wants us to love His Torah, to study it. And that doesn't only refer to the summaries of the laws or the headers of the laws, but to their details as well. And those details are in the rabbinic oral tradition.
And that's part of our hope and prayer for this book. But in addition to that, as we said, the rabbis say everything was written for the sake of the Messiah. So the scriptures as seen as being very messianic, but the reality is that because of persecution, because spiritually the scriptures say there is a partial and temporary blindness that has come upon the Jewish people.
When you hear this argument, the Jews are blind, and that is why we don't accept Jesus. I want you to think about this. When you read the messianic prophecies in the Hebrew scriptures, who goes to who to learn about God? Do the Hebrew scriptures tell us that Jews are going to go to non-Jews to learn about God? Jews are going to go to Christians to learn about God? Or do we discover that, in fact, it's the reverse? Non-Jews are going to go to the Jewish people to learn about God. Jeremiah, Isaiah, Zechariah, in the times of the Messianic era, that it's going to be the Gentiles who come to the Jewish people. And it's from the Jewish people they want to learn. Keep that in mind. And if for 2,000 years, has it been Jews who have been blind, or has it been Christians who are blind? The Jewish people always got into trouble when, instead of listening to the words of God, the teachings of the prophets, the teachings of the rabbis, their leaders, their teachers, and got into the observance of non-Jewish religions, that's when the Jewish people are always stumble and fall down. What is the worship of the golden calf? Isn't that idolatry of Egypt? The Moabites attacked using the Jewish people using their religion and temple priestesses as a means through temple prostitution to draw the Jews after them. Baal worship, Asherah worship of Jesus as a result of Christianity. These are all Gentile teachings that ultimately lead to a negative result for the Jewish people. It always leads to them straying from God's Torah. And the Jewish people are constantly being warned against doing that. And so, really, when Jews refuse to follow the Gentile religion, Christianity, they're actually doing what God requires of them. We're remaining faithful to God. That's the rub, I think, for some of these people.
They can't fully see Him there, but there is coming a day when the eyes of Israel will be open, that they will recognize Yeshua as the Messiah.
Where in the Hebrew scriptures do we have this? That Israel will be blind to the identity of the Messiah. Is that in the Hebrew scriptures? Is there a Hebrew quote that says, in the Messianic era, the Jews will open their eyes? For so long they've misunderstood who the Messiah is, and the Messiah was amongst the Gentiles in the form of Christianity, who were the ones who preserved the legacy and teaching of Jesus. Where in the Hebrew scriptures, in the Messianic passages, do we have tell of a time when Jews would be blind and then their vision corrected, and suddenly they've taken on a religion of the Gentiles. Where is that at? That is not a messianic prophecy. That's not in the Hebrew scriptures. It's the opposite. The nations will be shocked at the success of Israel. And that is displayed, that's talked about in Isaiah 53, that the king shall shut their mouths because of them. Why? Because for 2,000 years the Jewish people have suffered at the hands of the nations of the world. And everybody thought that the reason that they were suffering was solely because God wanted to punish them. And if I'm cruel to them and do bad things to them on top of that, I'm only doing what God already wants to happen. I'm helping God punish these faithless people. And that goes on for 2,000 years. Exclamation point, the Holocaust. The Jews saved from the camps come out looking less than human. But you know what happens 3 years later? You know the shocking thing is? Something that causes the mouths of kings to shut their mouths. 3 years later, after this tragedy where so many Jews are killed, 3 years later, there is a state of Israel. There is a salvation, a redemption. Do you really think that it's shocking that a religion gets started, acquires political and military might, and forces people to accept their religion, and that's a shocking fulfillment of some prophecy? Islam was created through Muhammad, and they took the sword and they went out and they spread their message, and they had lots and lots of converts through the sword. It's not shocking. It happens a lot. This is a very typical way for religions to grow and spread, is to do so through force of arm. The Jewish people, though, to suffer in diaspora for thousands of years and then be brought back to the land, who does that? Who else has had that experience other than Israel? It's hard to argue that the Jews have got the wrong idea when God is still performing miracles for the Jewish people, and those miracles are fulfillments of prophecy. God is fulfilling prophecies for the Jewish people, and those prophecies have been a long time coming, and they're being fulfilled. So doesn't the fact that God is still fulfilling prophecies on behalf of Israel, doesn't that indicate maybe the Jews have it right? Not that we're blind, but that we can actually see, and we've always been able to see. And that the ones who persecuted us and made us suffer without reason, that put their sins upon us, made us suffer their transgressions, aren't they the ones who are blind? Aren't they the ones who have it wrong? Isn't Christianity a false understanding of God's will? Just think about that.
Me as a Messianic Jew, the Messianic movement is a sign that God is doing something in this area, but also the fact...
Okay, wait. Messianic Judaism is a sign that, I guess the growth of it is a sign that God wants this to happen. It's a positive sign. Was the spread of Baal worship in Israel a positive sign that Baal worshipers were correct? That there is a God named Baal and he actually is powerful? Does Israel suffering defeat equal their enemies are right? If you get into a fist fight and one says A and the other one says B, but the guy who claims A gets beaten up, does that mean B is right?
That you are interested in the deeper mysteries of the Hebrew Scriptures, how the old and the new connect. This is also a sign of the times that God is preparing to do something among the Jewish people, because for over probably 1,800 years or so, the church has not been interested in the Jewish roots of the faith. They've kind of rejected the Jewish roots of the faith. They rejected the Jewishness of Jesus. That has been in the process of being restored, and as you embrace that, you help fulfill prophecy.
Okay, let's take this. This is an interesting thing. This is that gives you the flicker jiggers, right? This is the kind of like the exciting things here. Not only has the church not been interested in the Jewish roots of Christianity, they have actively attempted to destroy that connection. They were the ones who destroyed the Ebionite church, the Jerusalem church of Jesus. The church founded by his followers was destroyed by the Catholic Church. Christians have not only not been for their Jewish roots, they have denied the Jewish roots. They had denied the origin. This is not a fulfillment of anything special. It's really an indictment of the church and of Christianity. For 2,000 years, for nearly 2,000 years, the church has not, it's not just that the church has ignored the Jewish roots, they tried to destroy it. And in view of their inability to destroy it, and in view of the fact that people felt bad because of the Holocaust, and because people were shocked because of the reestablishment of the state of Israel, that caused their theologies, it forced their theologies to change to where now we love Jews. Jews have the promise. And now you come at it from everything we're doing is a love for the Jewish people. And so you have this farce, which is actually we need to get back to the Jewish roots. The fact is that the Jewish roots of Christianity have been severed long ago. Christianity is not Jewish. It's no longer. It hasn't been Jewish in like the majority of its history. 16, 17, 800, 1800 years, it has not been Jewish because the Christians severed those roots themselves. And I say Christians, and I understand that I'm using a monolithic term here, and there are some people who might agree with some of the things I say and other things they don't agree with. But understand that for a long time there were Catholics and Catholics were Christians, and that was Christianity, because the Catholic Church had all but wiped out any disagreeing voices. They wiped out all the other, heresies. 500 years ago, 600 years ago, when different groups broke away and started creating their own theologies and their own churches and their own identity as different types of Christians, that's a completely different matter. But the core of Christianity has been Gentile, and the church severed it. Even to a certain extent, even the Hebrew followers of Jesus severed that connection with Judaism, severed that connection with their roots when they went and informed on the Jewish people to the Romans. When it suited those early Christians to be Jewish, to have that pedigree, they chose to embrace being Jewish, and when it no longer served a value, they chose to reject that association.
And prepare the way for the salvation of Israel and the return of the Messiah. These are exciting times.
Messiah doesn't need to return because Messiah hasn't come yet. Unless you want to say that the Messiah is King David. And Ezekiel does actually say Prince David in Ezekiel. So there is the idea maybe that the Messiah is literally King David. And if you want to say that, then I guess he would be returning. But if you understand that's more metaphorical than... which generally I think is how most people take it. David is an example of what the Messiah will be like. But yeah, the Messiah isn't returning. He hasn't come at all yet. So far, all the prophecies that Jesus fulfilled were prophecies that not everybody agreed were messianic prophecies. And so the ones that are clear and say unequivocally that who the Messiah is, those Jesus did not fulfill.
These are the days that righteous men and women have longed to see, and I believe that we are going to see them. We need to unmask Jesus. We need to take off the foreign garments that we've clothed him in and reveal his Jewishness, and that's what Mysteries of the Messiah is meant to help do.
Who put the mask on Jesus to begin with? It was the church. It was Christians. Christians didn't want Jesus to be Jewish. They didn't want his Hebrew roots. And 2,000 years, when it's popular to be Jewish, yeah, now we care about our Jewish roots.